everyone, it's Sevy, and we have a new set of Spiral Abyss enemies for the 3.4 version, so it's time once again for another guide. As always, the teams used in this guide will feature 4 stars, with the exception of Traveler, which everyone has. Though I'll be using certain teams, this guide is meant to highlight the attack patterns of the enemies here and strategies you can use against them. And to avoid having to verbally repeat my usual general tips for doing Spiral Abyss, I'll just flash them on screen here and you can pause to take a quick read. One more thing, the blessing this time is a Dendro and Electro resistance reduction on enemies affected by Quicken, which is pretty good if you can exploit it. Anyway, let's get into it. Some general tips for floor 11. For the first half, having an Animo crowd controller will make things much easier since it's effective against the enemy types you'll encounter. I'm using an Aggravate team here with Sucrose, Yao Yao, Fischl, and Beidou. For the second half, using Cryo is effective against the enemies in all the chambers. It can shred the Electromitotral's shield, freeze the Hydro Abyss Herald, and destroy the Electro Regisvine stamens. While it's technically not necessary, it does make a no reset run very doable, especially because of the Abyss Herald. In my run, I'm using a freeze team with Heizo, Xingqiu, Kaya, and Rosaria. And of course, bring the shielders or healers you think you'll need to survive. This floor also has a 75% Dendro damage bonus buff, so that's a pretty big boost if you bring Dendro units. Now let's head into the first chamber. This chamber is a defend the monolith type as usual. In the first wave of enemies, the melee Eremites that spawn behind you target the monolith, so attack them first. In general, they can be staggered or disabled easily. It's best if you can push them away from the monolith so that the other Eremites that target you won't accidentally hit the monolith too. In the second wave, the 2 hammered treasure hoarders will target the monolith, so again, target them first. Beware of getting frozen by the potioneers, and the big Eremite can stagger you as well.
Midnight vent.
In the third wave, the Geo Eremite and his crocodile will target you, while the others target the monolith. So once again, disable those at the monolith while trying to stand apart from it so that the Geo Eremite's AoE attacks won't damage the monolith.
Absorption test. Enhanced animal module 70. Animal test 6308.
In the second half, all the Mitotrals that spawn will target the monolith, so you can let them group around it before attacking or disabling them, and they will easily die at the same time.
Ring cutter. Shiver.
Segler! Bring it on! This mold will be frozen in time.
Afterwards, an Electro will spawn. Stand between it and the edge of the field so that it rushes to the edge and stays there. It will follow you, so be sure to stay away from the monolith.
Witness the power of the one.
Cool it! Fracture!
There's no time pressure in this chamber, so it's also a good opportunity to charge your bursts before moving on to the next chamber. For Chamber 2, the first wave here is a group of Baptismal Bishops. Since I have a grouper, I just stagger them and attack them here in the center. Their projectiles will drain your energy, so you can either dodge those or stagger them as they're charging up. If you don't have a crowd controller though, you can group them by edge baiting. Anyway, as long as they're grouped, just use your AoE attacks in order to kill them simultaneously. The second wave of enemies is a group of fungi. These can once again be staggered and crowd controlled. The flying ones, when they're crowd controlled or disabled, they will drop to the ground. I would focus on the Hydro or Cryo one first because they can freeze you with their projectiles.
My royal.
Then the second half starts off with an Abyss Herald. Since I was using a freeze team here, it was easy to keep it unable to attack.
Oh, so sorry. Freeze! Get moving! Bring it on!
You can't run.
Cool it!
Once it gets its Hydro armor, be mindful that it becomes immune to Hydro, but also that it will automatically freeze just by applying Cryo to it. So keep using Cryo to keep it in place and wear its armor down and its health.
Fracture!
Judgment!
Cool it!
Next up is an animal Consecrated Beast. This enemy has a resistance against freeze, but it can still be frozen, and doing so will keep it from releasing many of its attacks.
Dodge this! Bring it on! Confess! Yeah!
You can't run!
Freeze!
Yeah!
Once you see that it starts charging up its animal ball, try to dodge that, but once you see its animal block come out to destroy it. Animal attacks will get rid of it very quickly, but other attacks will also destroy it, just at a slower rate. Once gone, the beast gets paralyzed and you can kill it fast. For Chamber 3, several slimes appear, so your animal crowd controller can swirl all their elements against each other. Then just use the appropriate elements to kill those remaining.
Eyes on me! By royal decree!
Afterwards, a wave of Nobushi and Kairagi will spawn. When they're about to do their rush attack, go near the wall to edge bait and group them there. Once grouped, you'll generally be able to damage them simultaneously. Just watch out if you don't kill the Kairagi at the same time, because the remaining one might regenerate HP. Finally, for this floor, we have the Electro Regisvine. It will first drop a Stamen, which you can use Pyro, Cryo, or Dendro to destroy in order to avoid them exploding and dealing damage. Then it will gain its shield at its head. If it starts doing low attacks, you can attack the head and wear the shield down with Pyro, Cryo, or Dendro as well. If you manage to break it, the Regisvine will be disabled and you can generally kill it quickly. Alternatively, you can wait for its second Stamen to drop and its shield will move to the roots. This one is easier to reach, and once you break it there, the Regisvine will be disabled as well.
Lights out. Yeah!
Don't get frostbite.
And that's it for floor 11. Let's move on to the final floor. For some general tips in floor 12, good shielders and or healers are highly recommended for both sides. The two Consecrated Beasts in the second chamber are particularly very deadly without sufficient survival units. In the first half, a team that can do Quicken, Aggravate, Spread, or Hyperbloom / Quickbloom will be very helpful in the third chamber against Asimon. A team that's good in single target is also recommended. Here, I'm using a Hyperbloom team of Xingqiu, Traveler, and Cookie Shinobu, with Noelle acting as my tank and main healer. Then, Animo AoE and crowd control units are very good in the second half because of the waves of enemies you can group and swirl against one another. I'm using the same Aggravate team from floor 11. Entering Chamber 1, in the first half, Ruin Guards spawn counterclockwise one by one. You can go after them where they stand, and that might be faster if you have the firepower. You can also lure them to where the next Ruin monster will spawn if that's more convenient for your team, especially if your team has circle areas you need to stay in. For this run, I'll do the former strategy.
Rain outlines your fate.
There's also an Electro node whose pulse imbues enemies with an Electro aura. This gives a significant resistance buff to them, but this Electro aura can be removed by counter elements, thereby removing the buff too.
Someone needs assistance. No, my sword! Let me weave.
This is relatively straightforward. Just dodge their attacks, keep your HP up, and kill them as quickly as possible.
rain outlines your fate. Lightning terrified! Dissipate! I must leave no stone unturned. Scatter!
The second half comes in 3 waves of enemies. As soon as the battle starts, run towards the edge of the map to edge bait them. Wave 1 are Whopper Flowers, and if done right, they should all spawn at the same time side by side to where you are. This is the perfect opportunity to kill them all together. Wave 2 are Abyss Mages of Cryo, Pyro, and Hydro. Continue staying at the edge and they will automatically teleport towards you. This is also the perfect time to use your Anemo AoE attacks, since you can swirl their shield elements against each other to quickly destroy their shields. Then just kill them when they're vulnerable. Finally, Wave 3 are Eremites, and you can keep on staying at the edge and wait for them to approach you. The melee ones will be the first to arrive. From there, crowd control them and kill them as quickly as possible.
To ashes!
Stand clear!
Testing my patience.
I'm getting sick.
The second chamber first half comes in 2 waves. Wave 1 is just 2 Nobushi and a Kairagi. These are pretty straightforward to deal with, though keep your back to the wall so that if they dash, they will head towards the edge where it's easier to keep them together.
To the fairy.
Propagate!
Then Wave 2 are the Pyro and Electro Consecrated Beasts, and here's where shielding and healing help a lot. Their attacks can really hurt and they're very aggressive too. Ideally, you should be doing damage to them simultaneously to clear the chamber as quickly as you can. If you focus only on doing damage to one, that will likely take longer. Whether you have a shield or healer, try to still dodge and iframe their attacks to avoid taking damage or getting staggered. They can definitely break your shield too soon if you just keep taking all their damage.
No, my stuff!
If you notice one of them enter their phagocytic form, hit the energy blocks with either the corresponding element to destroy it instantly, or other elements which will take longer. If successful, you'll paralyze it, and from there they'll be easier to kill. In the second half, we see the return of the Three Stooges. It's basically 3 Maguu Kenki, 1 Cryo, 1 Anemo, and the original. Let me just quickly go over their patterns. Blue keeps on following you except for when it's charging its moves. The most annoying ability he has is when he summons a cryo field that deals damage over time if you're standing in it and slows you down with cryo. Green does not actively follow you like Blue does, and he does ranged Anemo slashes. OG Maguu Kenki does his usual attacks, but he no longer dashes around the map, which is good. So at the beginning, Blue and Green seem to always start with their dash and slash attacks. Focus on dodging or iframing those attacks first, or tank them with a high HP unit. I have Beidou, so I can at least counter them. Then I target the original one first, and make sure to always keep the green one in front of me and behind the OG Kenki so that I can see and avoid his Anemo slashes. Blue will follow you around, so you generally won't lose track of him anyway. And if you have AoE attacks, it's very likely you'll be hitting either 2 or 3 of them simultaneously. But your targeting priority can change depending on the scenario, so just adapt as you see fit. Keep dodging, shielding, iframing, and healing as necessary, and make sure to track the enemies to be able to anticipate their moves as much as possible. You'll eventually get them down one by one, if not almost all at the same time. And if there's enough time left, try to safely get back your energy.
Don't be scared!
In this first half, Asimon is back, and the strategy as always remains the same. You'll start by attacking it and recharging your energy if needed.
Know my sword! Witness the power! Stand with me!
Then once it's in its invisibility state, you can easily track it with markers like elemental auras, debuff indicators, or by using AoE attacks that will display damage where it is. Simply trigger a Quicken reaction on it to force it out of invisibility and paralyze it. Alternatively, you could also use Dendro and Electro on its parts, but that is a slower process than simply just going directly for it. Deal as much damage as you can whenever it's paralyzed and keep repeating until it's destroyed.
Our bond is strong. Spring forth! Out of my way! Witness the power. Time to clean up. Dissipate. Scatter.
Finally, we have the last chamber. The first wave are just a mix of melee and ranged Eremites. Edgebait the melee ones first, then deal with them as you've done in the previous floors. AoE attacks help a lot.
Odds revealed. Stand clear. Swirl. Mark 2. Go get him, Uruguay! Shadow Raven!
Then, for the next wave, it's an all-out Pokemon battle with 3 Eremite summoners. Good thing I brought Uguay, Oz, and the mini Hypostasis. As usual, you can kill the beasts first or accidentally, and this will stun and weaken their owners. If you're not careful, the Dendro one can trap you in a cage. The animal one is the most annoying as it can create a vortex that sucks you in, so you could try prioritizing it first. But for my strategy, I just picked them off one by one, focused on dodging and doing AoE attacks to bring down both the Eremites and their beasts.
Animal test 6308.
Goodbye. But we'll meet again.
Uruguay! Odds revealed. Curtain.
And that's it for this guide. Let me know in the comments what you think of this cycle compared to the last one. At least the Golden Wolf Lord is gone. I'll also show my builds here for your reference. If you enjoyed this video, or if it helped you out, don't forget to leave a like, consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all soon. Take care!